The tick-tock of a clock resonates, constant, precise. A sound that soon blends with the deep echo of a cowbell in some hidden valley. Two rhythms that should not meet, yet in Switzerland, they beat in unison. What is it about this tiny country that transforms routine into ceremony, precision into poetry? Here, silence is not emptiness, it is language. Between mountains that command respect and clocks that measure time with devotion, the Swiss have made order a form of tenderness and simplicity a work of art. It's not about traveling to Switzerland, but understanding it, because perhaps this place is not a destination, but a way of looking at the world. In Switzerland, geography is not a backdrop. It is a severe and patient teacher. The Alps do not merely sketch the horizon, but also the soul of those who inhabit them. Every valley, every mountain pass has been both a border and a school. Here, life learned to organize itself around the unpredictable. For centuries, isolation shaped a mentality made of silence and foresight. Between long winters and short summers, survival depended less on impulse and more on calculation. Nothing could be left to chance when a storm could erase a path, or an avalanche could sweep away an entire year of work. The mountains do not forgive improvisation. They teach you to look at the sky as a calendar and to listen to the ground as a warning. From this came an intimate relationship with time, not as an enemy, but as raw material. Living surrounded by mountains means learning to wait, understanding that everything requires its rhythm, its preparation, its exact moment. Hail, thaw, river currents. Everything has an order that no one questions. From this respect for nature, the Swiss extracted an ethic of precision. Accuracy does not arise from whim, but from necessity. When an error can cost a harvest or a life, perfection ceases to be luxury and becomes virtue. The vertical geography also ordered the mind. Among peaks and slopes, thought becomes structured, meticulous, like the paths carved into the rock. There is no room for chaos. Everything must have its place, every gesture its purpose. Perhaps that's why Swiss architecture seems to speak the same language as the landscape. Sober lines, noble materials, nothing extraneous. Even the oldest villages seem built with a natural geometry, as though the houses had sprouted from the mountain with the same logic as a pine tree or a stone. This relationship between the natural and the rational defines a way of being in the world. The Swiss do not conquer the mountain. They coexist with it. They observe it, respect it, measure it. From this continuous dialogue, a form of thought arises that values detail, constancy, foresight. While other peoples celebrate improvisation as a sign of genius, here, continuity, craftsmanship, and repetition that perfects are admired. Patience is not taught in books, but in the climate. The seasons mark the rhythm of life like an invisible metronome. Winter forces you to huddle, repair tools, and plan. Spring opens routes, rivers, and tasks. Summer is brief, intense, full of movement. And autumn, with its golden light, invites you to measure, to count, to close cycles. In this constant transition between stillness and action, the Swiss learned that time is not dominated, it is synchronized. Perhaps that is why their culture seems woven with the same logic as the mountains: solidity, continuity, discretion. Every gesture, a well-built house, a clock that never fails, a train that arrives on time, is a form of respect for the environment. A way of saying, "We hear you," because those who live among peaks learn that beauty is not in the grand, but in the exact. That true harmony comes from accepting limits and working within them. Thus, the Swiss landscape not only shaped a country, but a philosophy. The balance between control and humility, between calculation and reverence. And in every valley, even today, the echo of that lesson repeats, like the distant sound of a bell in the snow. Slow, precise, inevitable. In Switzerland, the watch is not just an artifact. It is a profound symbol, an extension of a philosophy that seeks not only to measure time, but to revere it. In a country where precision is a fundamental respect, watches are not luxury items. They are expressions of a worldview that understands time as a sacred gift. From its origins, Swiss watchmaking has been a story of resilience, patience, and perfection. In the 16th century, Huguenot refugees arrived in Switzerland, expelled from France, seeking refuge in the mountains. With no resources, no land, but an unwavering will to survive, the Huguenots brought with them deep knowledge of metalwork and horology. From this blend of skills and necessities arose the watchmaking tradition that over the centuries has come to be synonymous with Swiss precision. Watchmaking is not just a craft, but a philosophy built on patience. Here, precision is not a whim, but an ethical obligation, a commitment to time that defines everything they do. Every gear that fits perfectly with another is not just a functional component. It is a work of respect for detail, a reverence for the process. The Swiss watch is a microcosm, a small society encapsulated in the face of a watch. Every gear has its place. Every piece turns with precision to allow the entire system to function harmoniously. In this tiny world, miniaturization reflects a culture of modesty, a rejection of ostentation, and a preference for simplicity and efficiency. Here, there is no room for the unnecessary. Every part must have a function, and every function must be executed to perfection. This same philosophy extends to Swiss society, where respect for order and dedication to a job well done are reflected in every aspect of daily life. The relationship between the watch and Swiss society is not only technical, but profoundly emotional. In the silence of a watchmaker's workshop, where the sound of the hammer on metal is the only noise heard, there is meditation in every strike, in every adjustment. Silence here is not emptiness. It is a way of being present, of paying homage to every detail that makes up the whole. The calm and concentration with which every watch is worked on is almost spiritual, a reflection of the patience valued as a national virtue. Each watch is a small meditation, an exercise in discipline and dedication. Perfection is not achieved in a moment, but through years of learning, years of rigorous training. And when it is reached, it is a reflection of a lifetime's commitment to detail. But in Switzerland, the watch is not just a tool to measure the passage of time. It is a way to honor it. Here, time is not something to be rushed or wasted. It is something deeply respected, measured with reverence. They don't just measure time, they honor it. Every tick and tock of a Swiss watch is an affirmation that time, in its purest form, must be treated with the same precision with which a tool is handled or an act of care is performed. The importance of Swiss watchmaking does not lie in its price, its luxury, or its ostentation, but in its ability to convey a much deeper value. Swiss watchmaking is a constant meditation on order, precision, and patience. A Swiss watch is not defined by its appearance, but by its flawless function. It is the result of hours, days, months, and years of work, the result of a meticulous and deliberate approach to creation. It is an act of respect, both for time and for those who appreciate it. Swiss watchmaking also has an almost philosophical dimension. In a world where speed and efficiency are valued more than process, Switzerland has maintained the belief that perfection is achieved only through time. Life should not be measured only by what is done, but by how it is done. And each watch reflects this philosophy. It is measured not only in minutes and seconds, but in the care with which each second is taken. Time in Switzerland is not just a resource to be consumed, it is a texture to be lived. The train in Switzerland is not just a means of transport. It is a sacred symbol of order, trust, and the connection between the human and the natural. In a country where the mountains impose their will on every path, the railway system is a nearly mystical feat of engineering, a miracle of precision that seems to defy the laws of geography. Every track, every tunnel, every bridge is a testament to a commitment to perfection. Beyond its practical function, trains are the vehicles that connect the inhabitants of the most isolated valleys to the rest of the world. In Switzerland, trains do not just cover physical distances, they also bridge social gaps. They go beyond mere transportation. They allow a highly structured society to function, uniting places, people, and moments. But what truly defines this railway system is not only the distance covered, but the punctuality. Punctuality is not a whim or an obsession. It is a form of respect. A train that arrives on time is not only a technical achievement, but an act of trust between all members of society. Punctuality, in Switzerland, is the principle upon which the relationship between the individual and the community is built. When a train arrives on time, the world continues without interruption. People can plan, trusting that the next event, the next appointment, will happen as expected. It is not just a train that arrives, it is a promise kept. This respect for punctuality is reflected in the very nature of Swiss railway engineering. Every tunnel that cuts through the mountains, every bridge that crosses a deep valley, every viaduct that defies the heights is proof of human capacity to overcome extreme challenges. In a country marked by imposing landscapes and difficult terrain, the train is the perfect answer. A transportation system capable of uniting the impossible, of crossing what once seemed impassable. But it's not just about engineering, it's about a philosophy. Swiss trains are not just machines. They are symbols of what is possible when planning and precision combine with a collective vision of the future. The aesthetic of railway design also reflects this philosophy. The lines of the trains, the simplicity of the stations, the functionality of every component are not just designed to be practical, but also to be beautiful. Beauty here is not a luxury, but a consequence of efficiency. The train has no unnecessary adornments, no superfluous elements. Every part of its design has a purpose, and that purpose is to take the passenger from one place to another in the most efficient, safe, and comfortable way possible. It is an art based on detachment, on simplicity. In Switzerland, beauty and functionality are not in conflict. They are deeply intertwined. And while the trains travel through the landscape, there is a profound contrast between the speed of technology and the stillness of the landscapes they pass through. The train travels between stations with precise, exact speed, but as it moves, nature remains unchanged. The mountains do not hurry, the valleys are in no rush. This contrast between human speed and natural eternity creates a special, almost reverent atmosphere, as if the machine itself respects the immense rhythm of the land it crosses. There is something deeply poetic about this encounter between the fleeting and the eternal. Trains, like prayers, go from station to station, fulfilling their task, but leaving behind an invisible mark. a reminder that time, although measured in seconds, is also measured in moments that endure. The human stories that intertwine in every railway journey also shape this religion of punctuality. The train conductors, with their serious faces and firm hands on the controls, are not just workers. They are guardians of social harmony, custodians of the trust that society places in the system. The engineers, who conceive and build the viaducts and tunnels that make it possible for the train to cross the mountains, are not just technicians. They are architects of unity, designers of a more connected future. And the passengers, who board the train each morning, are not just individuals. They are the believers who trust the system, who place their faith in the promise that every train will arrive on time, that every stop will be fulfilled. Every journey is, in a way, a collective ceremony in which all participants play their part. Because ultimately, the train in Switzerland is more than a vehicle. It is a metaphor for the country itself, organized, efficient, punctual, but also deeply human. In its regular and precise movement, the trains reflect the heartbeat of a country that understands that life functions better when everyone is in the same rhythm. Every station, every trip, is a testament to the fact that, in Switzerland, punctuality is more than a custom. It is a religion that honors time, respects effort, and deeply believes that the connection between people, places, and ideas is only possible when time is taken seriously. In Switzerland, there is so much more than landscapes, watches, and trains. If you look closely, you'll discover that some of the most fascinating places aren't found in tourist guides, but in the ways its people live. In every corner of this country, there are stories that don't follow the usual paths, that don't appear on maps. They are stories told in the rhythm of a train at the exact time, in the silence of a watchmaker's workshop, in the patience with which nature transforms with the seasons. Outside the map is not just a name. It is an invitation to look beyond the obvious, to explore places and philosophies not shown in tourist itineraries. If you want to keep discovering the essence of those places that are more than their landscape, if you're interested in diving into stories that transcend the visible, this is your space. If this vision of Switzerland has resonated with you, subscribe and join us. Here, we don't just explore maps, but the ideas that create them. In Switzerland, pastoral life is more than just an occupation. It is an act of cultural resistance, a way to keep alive an ancestral relationship with the land. In the mountains, where roads fade away and the silence weighs with its primal force, transhumance, the annual cycle of moving livestock up and down the Alps, remains a ritual that links culture with nature in a deeply symbolic way. It is a task that demands resilience, dedication, and above all, an unshakable faith in tradition. The cows, with their bells ringing through the cool morning air, are more than animals. They are guardians of the cultural landscape. Every time a cow ascends to the mountain pasture, it carries with it the story of generations who have made the land their life, their roots, and their reason for existence. The bells, whose chime echoes through the valleys, are not just an echo in the landscape. They are ancestral music, the pulse of a way of life that refuses to be forgotten. This ritual of moving the cattle up and down is not just a daily task, but an expression of continuity, of respect for what has been and for what continues to be. We should not romanticize rural life, as it is not without its harsh realities. Transhumance is not an idyllic stroll, nor is grazing a bucolic activity. It is relentless work. Long days under the blazing sun or in the snow, constant care of the livestock, navigating difficult mountain paths, and the need to protect both the animals and the landscape. However, through this work, not only is the culture preserved, but the very landscape itself. Pastoralism in Switzerland is one of the main forces keeping the fields, meadows, and valleys alive, creating a cultural landscape that has not changed significantly since time immemorial. The traces of the herders are engraved in the land, as if the very landscape were shaped by the hands of those who have cared for and protected it for centuries. Cheese, as a product of this pastoral life, is more than just food. It is an expression of community, patience, and connection to the land. In every piece of cheese aged on the peaks of the Alps, there is the story of an entire summer, the dedication of the herders, the wisdom of grazing, and the character of the mountains. Each cheese has its own flavor, a personality shaped by the milk of the cows, the type of grass they have grazed, and the hands that have worked it. In this way, Swiss cheese becomes a tangible bond between people, the land, and time. It is an act of creation that reflects the symbiosis between rural culture and the landscape that sustains it. Local festivals, celebrations of daily life, are another testament to how rural culture remains alive and relevant in Switzerland. In these festivals, an idyllic past is not celebrated, but the present of a community that knows the immense value of the everyday. The cows, with their bells, are part of these celebrations. They are not seen as symbols of the past, but as essential elements of current life. The mountains, the livestock, the cheeses, and the cowbells all weave together in a network of meanings that shape a Switzerland that is not just urban or modern, but also profoundly rural and traditional. Here we find a contrast between two Switzerlands, the urban, modern and technological one, and the rural, peaceful and resilient one. However, both complement each other, both exist in harmony. Rural Switzerland is not a museum of the past, nor a relic of times gone by. It is a living option, still a choice for those who want to maintain a deep connection with nature, time, and community. What we see in the countryside is not a static landscape, but a symbiotic relationship. The cows shape the landscape, and in turn, the landscape shapes the culture. The work of the herders, the way the land and paths are managed, and how the animals are cared for, all form a continuous cycle that defines Switzerland as a nation that values balance. Pastoral life is not an echo of the past, but a way of life that is still essential for the future, reminding us that tradition is not something to be stored in a display case, but something to live every day. For all these reasons, the Swiss countryside remains a temple, but not one that is worshipped from afar. It is a temple that is worked, that is felt, that is respected. And in that respect, in that daily devotion to the landscape, the cows, and the cheese, we find one of the keys to understanding the soul of Switzerland. Here, the work of pastoralism is not just a profession. It is a resistance to modernity that, instead of rejecting it, integrates it, turning tradition into something that remains alive, something that continues to be relevant. Architecture in Switzerland doesn't shout, impose, or aim to dazzle. On the contrary, it withdraws modestly, aligning with the deeper values of Swiss culture: simplicity, functionality, and respect for the environment. Here, design is not a luxury, but an extension of daily life, a way of living with the landscape without attempting to dominate it. The aesthetic of functional minimalism reflects a society that seeks balance between being and the environment, between the human and the natural. Traditional buildings, such as alpine chalets, wooden barns, or stone churches, are examples of architecture that speak softly but powerfully. These structures are not built to draw attention, but to be part of the landscape, as if they had risen from it. Wood, warm and durable, and stone, firm and eternal, are used not only for their beauty, but for their ability to blend into the surroundings and withstand the passage of time. These homes are not monuments. They are refuges, simple, yet full of soul. Every beam, every slanted roof, every window seems to have been designed to fit perfectly into the mountains, to embrace the landscape without interrupting it. In Swiss cities, urban design follows the same principles. Streets are built on a human scale, made for walking, for stopping and talking, for turning every corner into an extension of the home. There are no grand, oversized avenues or buildings that seek to dazzle. The cities respect human size, just enough so that residents feel comfortable and connected with each other. Plazas, fountains, and benches are spread throughout the urban environment, not only as ornaments, but as essential elements for coexistence. Public space in Switzerland is not a neutral zone, but an extension of private life, a place where people can feel at home, yet without the need to close themselves off in a private space. Every plaza is a small refuge of calm, every bench a place to pause and observe the rhythm of the day. This human-scale design sharply contrasts with the gigantism of other cultures. While in other cities around the world, architecture seeks to surprise, impress, or dominate. In Switzerland, harmony is prioritized. Buildings do not compete for attention. Instead, they recognize themselves as part of a whole, small but essential components of an urban landscape that flows with serenity. The Swiss city does not seek grandeur, but functionality, balance, and above all, humanity. This approach also extends to basic infrastructure. The plazas and fountains, with their calm waters, serve not only to beautify, but to facilitate encounters, to create spaces where the flow of life slows down. The bench in the plaza is not just an object, it is a place of rest, an invitation to reflection and interaction. And every corner of a Swiss city is designed to be welcoming, to foster a sense of belonging, of community, without being intrusive. In Swiss architecture, beauty is not sought in ornamentation, but in what is necessary. Every detail, from the design of a window to the texture of a stone wall, is designed to fulfill a function. There is no space for the unnecessary, for what does not contribute to the whole. Beauty here lies in the purity of form, in the simplicity of construction, in the absence of excess. Every element has a purpose: the structure, the material, the light, the space. Everything is there to be useful, to improve daily life without stealing attention from what really matters: the environment, the relationship with nature, and coexistence with others. Perhaps the most distinctive aspect of Swiss architecture, however, is the silence. Silence is not just the absence of noise, but an essential component of design. The way houses and buildings are distributed, the way public spaces are conceived, even the choice of materials, all contribute to creating an environment that promotes calm. There are no clamor or visual or auditory outbursts. Silence in Switzerland is designed. It is as crucial an element as the structure itself, as the stone or the wood. Thus, Swiss architecture becomes a physical reflection of its culture, a culture that values the essential, seeks serenity and simplicity, and builds not only with materials, but with the intention of preserving balance, order, and connection. In this country, architecture is not just the art of constructing spaces. It is the art of creating places where one can live in tune with natural rhythms, where every corner has its reason for being, where space breathes to the beat of daily life. In Switzerland, daily life is constructed through rituals that do not seek to celebrate the spectacular, but rather strengthen the essential: community and connection with time. Local markets are some of the most significant spaces where this ritual experience takes place. Here, every Saturday, the streets fill with colors, smells, and sounds that reflect a tradition passed down from generation to generation. These markets are not just places to buy and sell goods. They are meeting points where young people connect with the elderly, where farmers bring what the land has given them and offer it to their neighbors, creating an ongoing bond with their surroundings. In these markets, the hands that sell are the same as those that harvest. The products sold are not just food, but also memories and stories. Traditional festivals, for their part, are not events for tourists, but private celebrations of identity, meant to reinforce the fabric of the community. From harvest festivals to religious celebrations, these rituals are not designed for entertainment, but to remind and reaffirm what it means to be part of a community. In these festivals, what matters is not visibility, but the deep sense of belonging that is cultivated. They are celebrations lived with family, among friends, in small villages, and do not seek an audience other than those who partake in them. In this context, joy is not a spectacle. It is an internal experience, a reminder that time is measured not just in hours and minutes, but in moments of community. Switzerland's relationship with the seasons also reveals a ritual of order that goes beyond simple climate change. The seasons are not just variations of weather, but life cycles that determine the rhythm of life throughout the country. Winter, for example, is not seen as a time of darkness and cold, but as a period of collective introspection. During these months, when the snow covers the mountains and the days grow shorter, Switzerland plunges into a profound, almost reverential silence. People gather indoors, in the warmth of their homes, but this silence is not empty. It is a time for reflection, for preparing for the coming year, for the rest that will allow for renewal. Winter, in many ways, is the space where the internal connection with nature and oneself is deepened. When spring arrives, the cycle is renewed. The season is celebrated as a ritual of renewal, not only in nature, but in life itself. Flowers bloom, animals return from the pastures, and with them, life begins again. It is the time of awakening, of rituals that celebrate the fertility of the land and the regeneration of communities. In spring, people head outdoors, celebrating spring festivals, harvest festivities, and gardening events. Nature comes back to life, and with it, the feeling that everything is in its place, in its rightful cycle. These rituals not only mark the passage of time, they are how Switzerland creates belonging without exclusion. Every ritual, big or small, fits into this eternal cycle of renewal. Whether in the tranquility of Sunday, on a family walk through the mountains, or gathered around a table of cheese and bread, every gesture, no matter how small, is infused with meaning. In Switzerland, small daily rituals, the silence of Sundays, sharing a simple meal, the daily walk, are as valuable as the grand celebrations. It is in these seemingly ordinary moments that the true essence of Swiss community is nurtured. Repetition, in many ways, is the way to preserve cultural memory. It is not about repeating for the sake of monotony, but about keeping alive the fundamental values. Every season, every market, every festival, every small daily gesture carries the same intention: to maintain continuity, an order that connects the past with the present and ensures that the future follows the same cycle. In this repetition, collective identity is forged. What was is respected, and what will be is equally imbued with meaning. For all these reasons, rituals in Switzerland are not merely customs. They are the invisible fabric that holds society together. They are acts of cultural resistance, affirmations of identity, and respect for time and nature. Through these rituals, Switzerland celebrates what it is, what it has been, and what, hopefully, it will always be. Perfection comes at a price. In Switzerland, where everything seems to be in its place, where order is cultivated as a virtue and precision is the norm, there exists a shadow that few see at first glance. Behind the apparent calm, behind the impeccably organized society, there hides an emotional cost, a constant tension between the tradition that preserves identity and the modernity that redefines what it means to live in harmony. Extreme order, the meticulousness with which every aspect of Swiss life is managed, also creates a void. In a country where everything seems calculated and controlled, there are those who feel the pressure to meet expectations that are not always their own. Social conformity, the desire to fit into the Swiss mold, can be both an act of unity and repression. People feel responsible for maintaining that balance, but in the process, do they lose themselves? Individual freedom, at times, is subject to the rules imposed by a society that values both the collective and the individual. The tension between tradition and modernity also sets the rhythm of Switzerland. While old customs are preserved, from mountain herding to watchmaking craft, there is growing pressure to keep up with an increasingly digital and globalized world. The country faces the challenge of integrating new influences without losing its deeply rooted identity. Immigration, for example, has brought new cultures, new ways of life, which in many cases are forced to adapt to a system that values order and integration, but sometimes has little room for difference. This generates an internal dialogue about what it means to be Swiss, about whether national identity should be static or dynamic, and whether one can be part of Switzerland without renouncing who they are. Loneliness, in this context, becomes another price to pay for perfection. In a society that values order and efficiency so highly, emotional connection is sometimes relegated. The rhythm of life is lived in solitude. Perfection is sought in the absence of mistakes, but in the quest for perfection, the warmth that characterizes deeper human relationships can be lost. People can feel trapped in a system that allows no failures, in an environment that, while full of beauty and harmony, can also feel impersonal and distant. The price of perfection is, in many cases, disconnection, the emptiness left when something unattainable is pursued. It is important to recognize that every light casts a shadow. Perfection, as a collective ideal, is not without its complexities. Each achievement, each advance, each step towards efficiency brings with it what is sacrificed to reach it. The melancholy of what is lost in the pursuit of efficiency, the nostalgia for a simpler or less controlled life, is something felt in the gazes of those who question whether they are truly gaining more than they are losing. And yet, this question never has a definitive answer. Is so much perfection sustainable? Can a country remain so precise, so organized, without losing something essential of its humanity? Ultimately, what is sought here is not to make judgments, but to observe with empathy. Perfection in Switzerland is, in many ways, a sacrifice that reflects the deep desire for order and stability, but also a reminder that balance always comes with a cost. The challenge, then, is not to point out the shadows, but to understand that there is no light without darkness, that perfect order cannot exist without the tensions that uphold it. In the end, perfection is not a destination, but a constant quest, full of contradictions and nuances, that makes every day in Switzerland an act of balance between what is gained and what is let go. In Switzerland, greatness is not measured by dimensions, but by the depth with which the small is lived. In the stillness of the mountains, in the precision of a watch, in the soft sound of a cowbell ringing in the distance, everything speaks of a philosophy that turns the ordinary into art. An art that does not seek to be admired, but to be experienced, lived, felt. The art of being small, of finding greatness in simplicity, in order, in calm. Perhaps, in the end, what Switzerland teaches us is not a model to follow, but an invitation to reflect on what truly matters. Turning the simple into art doesn't mean seeking perfection, but learning to find beauty in what many consider insignificant. Perfection here is not in what is achieved, but in what is lived in the process, the time invested, the patience cultivated, the harmony created. Like a watch that moves forward without hurry, but without stopping, Switzerland offers us a lesson in each tick-tock. Time is both a constant flow and an opportunity for reflection. And like the cowbell heard in the air, it reminds us that, in each step, the rhythm of life is found both in stillness and in movement. Perhaps there is no definitive answer, nor a clear path to perfection. But in Switzerland, as in life itself, the question is never in the destination, but in the journey. And as we search for answers, we discover new questions. So, I leave you with an image. A quiet afternoon in the Alps. The sun says goodbye behind a hill, and the fresh air carries with it the distant echo of a bell. A moment that pauses, that breathes, that is felt. It is in this space where the lessons of Switzerland come to life. And maybe, just like this calm landscape, the search for the essential is closer than we think. If this journey through Switzerland has left something in your soul, you might want to keep exploring other stories that, like this one, invite you to think about the art of being small.